it can be a tricky thing to work with, both the real thing and trying to replicate it onto miniatures, either on their bases or on the miniatures themselves. Either way, it's kind of hard to work with. Today, I'll be showing you how to replicate it specifically on the model's base. This doesn't have to be a beach effect, it could also be a swamp, a pond, a bathtub, maybe not a bathtub. Now you're gonna need something like resin. Maybe I'll do that in the future. Maybe I'll make a painted tutorial on resin. Anyways, let's get started. So what we see here are some troll bloods that I painted for commission. I'm not keeping these. And this is probably the last time you'll see these miniatures ever in a video. You can see their bases. They have a bit of glossiness to them. Also the little white caps that you usually see in waves. You can see on this guy. This guy, you can't really see it too well. He's a bit big. Alright, now we can look at the paints that we're going to be using to create this water effect. The first is a technical paint, which is Valhalla Blizzard, which is a snow effect. You're going to want one that's kind of a paste, not the little balls that you have to mix with something else. I don't think that would work. That's for the white caps anyways. Next would be Ard Coat, which is a gloss varnish. So any gloss varnish should do. And these next few paints are just a gradient of blue. You don't have to get these exact ones. It could be just, you know, a blue. You can even just use one paint and just mix it with like a darker blue or a white to get a gradient. That's what this whole idea is about, is to make the sea go darker as you go further and further from the sand. This next one is the sand itself, Xandri dust, which of course is you don't need to get the exact paint. But this one is the Vallejo water texture, which is pretty much our trump card in this. This is how we're going to create the water effects, the waves, and all that. This is just what I use to paint bases, not paint, but like do the terrain, do the texture. And it's pretty big. I wouldn't buy the ones from Games Workshop because they're really small. And since I paint a lot of minis, you know, it's necessary to have a big container of texture paint. Oh, and also, since the dirt texture is just dirt, I'm going to be using some of this to make it look like sand. That would be to highlight, and then Agrex or shade to shade it. Alright, well, that should be about it. Now we can get started. Now, the first thing you do is you take your base and you figure out which part of it is going to be sand and which part is going to be water. What I do is I just kind of put the miniature on the base and, you know, line it up. This is easier if the model is already glued to the base. That way you could just, you know, paint on all the sand and whatnot and not have to worry about trying to remember where the model's feet were and making sure that there's enough sand for the model to stand on. So this one is, I'm just looking at it here, making sure everything's fine. What you could do is paint, like have little paint splotches on the model's feet and just slam it onto the base and see, just so it's easy to remember. But for me, what I do is I just kind of go off memory. And after you've already determined where the sand is going to go, you just put on the sand. Now, if you're one of the people who has actual sand texture paint and not dirt, then you can pretty much just skip these next few steps, if you already know how to paint sand, that is. But this next one, you can skip. Because all I'm doing right now is just completely covering the first half of the base with dirt, or sand. It's going to be sand, it's dirt for now. But we're just covering all this, and then afterwards, we can make it look like sand. Now, this stuff does kind of take a while to dry, so in the meantime, you can watch some of our cool videos, but only these ones, not any of the other ones, because these ones are edited by me. I don't want you watching Dude76's videos, because he promotes violence and hate and ugliness. Yeah. Now that the base is completely dry, we can begin making it look like sand. using these paints, Xandri Dust, Agrax Earthshade, and bleach sand that I got from Hobby Lobby. So first we'll base coat it with Xandri Dust to make it look like sand. Now this is the part that I was saying you guys could skip if you already have the sand texture paint and you know how to paint it. So just, shaking it up and then completely coating the thing. I should probably have some paper to wipe this on. I usually do, but I really did not plan this, did I? Man, I should start doing this for these videos. I should start planning ahead. Oh well. Luckily that didn't take too long, unlike the actual basing material. So now we can move on to shading it with Agrax Earthshade. Now for this one you kind of just want to splotch it on. Make sure you're not getting too heavy globs. Make sure that it's nice and even all around, and make sure everything looks good, at least to you. It doesn't matter if it looks good to anyone else. Just if you're happy with it, then that's all that matters. Now we can move on to what I consider the best part of miniature painting, which is highlighting. For bases, I just dry brush highlight, which, if you don't know what dry brushing is, you take off most of the paint from the brush, so it only gets the edges of the miniature and doesn't seep into where the dark places should be. So it's a very easy way to highlight for bases anyways. I might make a tutorial in the future on how to highlight skin, because you wouldn't want to dry brush highlight skin. So what I'm doing is just wiping off most of the paint onto my hand, which I know you're supposed to use like a paper for, but whatever. I'm not going out to get a piece of paper when I could just use my hand. It's perfectly good hand. It's not like it's gonna kill me or nothing. It's not poisonous. It's not toxic. It's it's fine. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. Ugh. Okay, alright. Well, okay, so now that you've done the sand, make your sand base look sandy. Now we can move on to the water texture, the best part, arguably, or maybe the worst part. I don't really know. So we're just gonna take our Vallejo water texture, big old can. You don't need to shake this, at least I don't think. I don't shake it, but you do want to be careful, because when I open it, there's this little white thing, and when you open this, some of the texture paint gets stuck to it. So make sure you're opening it kind of slowly, that way you don't get too much paint onto your hands, don't waste it. So I'm just gonna pick it up with the Games Workshop texture tool, I guess. Yeah, tool we'll call that. So you're just gonna glob it on just like this. You could probably use an old paintbrush for this, actually. So we're gonna glob it on. Make sure you're not getting too much, because if you put on too much paint, then you're just gonna be kind of wasting it, and it might even look bad. I don't know. I've never done it, but just make sure you're using it conservatively. Just nice little globs here and there. I'm using that word way too much. I should probably think of something else. And make sure you're making these little waves here, because the way that you're putting it onto the base is how it's going to dry. So, as you see, I'm mixing it, making it look like there's little waves here and there. Now this stuff does take quite a while to dry, so while you're waiting, you can head over to Crimson Moon Battles at Patreon to help fund the bloodshed. Every little bit counts. It helps us paint minis, build minis, play with minis, and sacrifice Otro to the Chaos Gods. Well, maybe not that last part. We are doing a monthly miniature giveaway over there, and if you donate $20, we will forever immortalize your name by painting it on a piece of our terrain. Alright, no more long waits. That was the last bit of it. Now we can move on to painting the water. So now we can see that exactly how we painted it is how it has ended up. It's all dry. We have the little waves, nice and glossy. but we looks kind of bad. You can still see what's underneath it. So we're going to be fixing that by painting on the other paints. First is Xandri dust. We're just going to take a bit of that and put it on the edge of the base. Make sure you're not getting too much. Of course, wipe it on your hand or paper. It doesn't really matter. So we're going to wipe it all on the edge of the base. Make it look like the sand underneath the water. Make the water look shallow. Then we're going to get our lightest blue and paint over that while the paint is still wet, not the sand. So we mix those together, and now it can look like there is water on top of sand. If we can, there you go. So you see, it kind of looks bad because we aren't finished with it. But if you get this kind of paint, then that's good. This kind of color, I mean. So now we just take our next paint. These are all out of order. I just realized that. This is my darkest blue. What am I doing? Okay. Well, we're just gonna paint this on and fix that in the future. Make sure that you're not painting on your darkest blue, not until you paint it on the other blues. But it still looks pretty good. You see, we're getting rid of most of the gloss, but that's what the gloss varnish is for. So I'll fix that. So we're just gonna keep on going with this gradient and make sure that the brush is at least a little bit wet, or the paints. You're not getting too much on the base, and make sure that the paint is nice and wet. That way you can get a nice glaze going. I do not know the terminology at all, but whatever, doesn't matter. You don't need to know the terminology to be a good painter. I mean, I'm not, so that doesn't really say much, but whatever. And now that that's done, we can start adding the little white caps, these little bits, using the snow, which is Valhalla Blizzard. So, I don't know why I'm showing you this. You've already seen it. This is stupid. Get this out of here. Get out. Get out. Yes, hard coat. Get out. Get out. There we go. Valhalla Blizzard. So, we're just going to open this up, and using our same texture brush from before, or texture tool, we're just going to get a little bit of it on our brush and just pick out all the little humps, the little waves of the water here. So you see all those little bumps. We're just going to carefully put a little bit of the snow onto it to make it look like waves, make it look more like waves. Now I'll show you in a minute what it looks like if you don't add the snow, which it doesn't look that good in my opinion. It gives the water more it makes it look more like water and makes it a bit more cool to look at. So we can see here from the blend that we did earlier where the water meets the sand, it looks nice and I guess beach-like. So just keep on doing that. Make sure you're not getting too much snow on the base. Don't want to ruin it. And that should be good. Maybe a little bit there. Yeah, that's pretty good. This stuff shouldn't take too long to dry because there's not a whole lot of it, just little bits here and there, but make sure you're still giving it plenty of time. Alright, now that that's done, we can begin making our water look like water and not dried paint. So we're going to be using our gloss varnish, which is Art Coat. This will give it a nice sheen, make it look shiny, make it look wet. So make sure you're not getting too big of paint. I'm trying not to use the word glob. But yeah, just make sure you're not getting too much and just spread it all over the water area. So here it is after being completely dunked in the Art Coat. You can see it looks pretty well on camera. It looks even better in person. So you can be the judge of it whenever you perform this tutorial on your own minis. After that, we can just finish it off by painting the rim of the base black, or whatever color you want to use. It doesn't have to be black. It could be bronze. It could even be white. Maybe you're doing a Christmas beach theme, which would be interesting. If you are doing that, or if you're just doing this tutorial in general, if this tutorial helped you, if you're painting something using this tutorial, then tweet it at me. at cm_idit at Twitter. We would love to see it, and we might even include it in another video. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and remember to always paint your walls crimson. I know that's not really my thing. Usually Dude76 says it, but whatever. I'm gonna say it here because he's not in this video, only me.